That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a few quick things before we get started tonight. A reminder, tickets are available for our conference in Grafton, Illinois, May 12th through the 15th, journeytotruth.online. There are still tickets available if you want to come hang out with us. We have a great lineup of speakers this year, and there are live stream passes if you can't make it in person, and one-day passes if you can't make it for the whole trip. But it is a lot of fun. Grafton, Illinois, journeytotruth.online. You can find those tickets there. And if anyone is in the Sacramento, Folsom, California area, February 23rd, Mary Beaver is going to be doing 6 hours of disclosure, releasing declassified documents that were given to her by the Pentagon. And she has been given permission to disclose this stuff, including specific extraterrestrials that our government is involved with, stargates, underground bases, the whole 9 yards. I am going to be hosting that event. It's only $50 in person, $25 for a live stream pass. And all of that information is available at adanaofsoul.com, and that link is below in the description as well. So if you're in the area, come and hang out with us. Okay, so today's guest is Charles McNEAL, and he is a whistleblower I found on X. I've been trying to grow our channel over on X, and I came across him. He posted something about the Serpo missions, in particular, a language that had been decoded, and that's how they even communicated with the Ebens from Serpo to even set up those missions. And he can tell us more about that, or Project Crystal Night. Either way, long story short, I commented on that post, and he replied back, and we started talking. He is a wealth of information. He has been briefed on a number of times on classified programs, aliens, and UFOs. And we're going to turn it over to him and let him introduce himself properly and give him the stage, and he can tell everyone how he got into all this, because it is quite the story. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Really excited to do this podcast. I really respect you guys' show. I'm all in for the question and answer part. I think it's really important to go ahead and just tell people exactly how I received 8 classified briefings between the end of January 2003 and the beginning of September 2012, because it's an extremely controversial program that is still classified. And it's called Operation Society Hike. It is an Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI operation that has been in place for decades. I am not the only person involved. I was involved. I was actually kicked out of the program in 2012, unbeknownst to me at the time. So I'll make all that make sense for you, but just for the ones that know, it was ran by Special Projects Branch out of Belvoir Army Base, Fort Belvoir, actually, where they actually run this out of for Air Force Intelligence, and that's in Virginia. And my handling agent covert name is Robert May. And if Air Force ever gives me the assurance that his family would never lose his pension, for what he did do during those briefings that I'll explain here in a minute, then I'll be okay with bringing his real biological name forward. But without that, that's not going to happen. I would never do that. He actually passed away in April of 2018. Some health complications. And so how it happened was this. Operation Society Hike was not something I was aware of when it was happening. So I was a very troubled kid. And I came from, the trenches. I came from the streets. And I was in the streets. At 17 years old, I worked at a truck stop in Greencastle, Pennsylvania, off Interstate 81, known as the John stop at the time. And I specifically worked in the Buckhorn restaurant area, where what they call four-wheelers or regular vehicles would park, come eat, and, the truckers they could walk all the way up there from the service areas to the parking areas to take showers. I was a porter. I was the guy who cleaned the showers, got ready, basically a janitor, but I did a little more things than that. But my purpose of being there as a 17-year-old knucklehead kid was to sell weed to the truck drivers. Just being honest, because that's all I know how to do is tell the truth. So that's why I was there. And so I walked outside one day, sun's kind of going down. This was May of 2002, and I walked out front where the regular four-wheelers sit, where my truck was parked, and a couple spaces down there was this older model Chevy pickup truck. Guy sitting on the tailgate, clean cut, nice clothes, and he's just sipping on a beer, just staring off. And my young mind, I'm like, if he drinks beer, he smokes weed. Like, why not? I mean, obviously that was dumb, but so I go up to the guy and I, hey, do you smoke? He says, smoke what? And I told him, and he's like, he politely declines, but then he said something that grabbed me that no one has ever done. It seems simple to everyone else, but I didn't come from that. So he came and he said, why are you out here doing that, man? What are you doing? And we just started talking, and he took interest in me. And it's something I wasn't used to, because I had a wonderful father, but he was out on the road, over the road truck driver. And my first stepfather was a complete fucking asshole. So I couldn't get that at home, My mother was amazing, but he was an asshole. The point is, when this guy showed interest, I listened. And we just started talking. It was never about anything to do with aliens or UFOs, and I didn't know anything about that stuff at the time. And the only time we ever talked about him is I asked him, because one day turned into a couple of days, and then now it's 3 days a week. I'm seeing him out there, and we're talking, and he's becoming like a childhood mentor. So eventually I'm like, how are you here all the time? Like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he's like, I'm retired. And I retired a few states away, but I got a place out here, and then, I come to and from on 81, and now I have a reason to stop through here. So I do. And I said, okay, well, what would you retire from? And he said Air Force Intelligence. And at the time, I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. I'm like, okay, cool. So he started asking me about getting in the military, and we'll fast forward a bit. He came around more often, and we fast a couple months later, it's, August of 2002. I let him follow me home to my mother's house. And then that's where we started, politicking. And he would park down there where I would park at. And he would drink his beer. I'd smoke my weed, and we'd talk, and he'd just be there. He became a childhood mentor. We never spoke about anything like that. But that was around the time that I couldn't see past Friday night. So me and my girl, I thought was the love of my life, when she wasn't, because I was 17. We broke up. I thought it was the end of the world, so I ran away. But I was on juvenile probation, and I came back, they locked me up. But they sent me to a boot camp, and it was ran by all active and retired military personnel. It was called Abraxas Leadership Development Program, LDP. And I was the 83rd platoon, if I remember correctly. And while I was there, it's ran by all active and retired military personnel, like I'm saying, but I'm talking from regular officers all the way to special forces. This is everybody. Counselors, workout, PT, everything is them. And even the people passing out the food most of the time with them. Oh, most of the time. So my point is, I had a counselor that was active Air Force. He was 31 years old, I believe. We called him by their first name, so he was Mr. Paul. And we're out on the field out during the last wilderness phase, which is 5 weeks, and 2 weeks of that is on the Appalachian Trail. But during this, we're on the Appalachian Trail, and me and this guy, we came really close. I turned 18 in there. I was one of the older guys. I wasn't really a kid anymore, but I was a kid, So we would talk about girls. We would talk about life and smoking weed or whatever. And he would tell me about the Air Force. And one day, we're on this Appalachian Trail, middle of the night. And he's got a serious look on his face. The rest of the cadets and staff members are over there cooking chili. We're on top of the Appalachian Trail, right there on South Mountain, Pennsylvania, close by South Mountain, Pennsylvania. And when you're on top of the mountain, it's super bright at nighttime. Like, if there's no clouds in the sky, the stars look like they're right there. And it's December. It's right there. It's clear night. Snow on the ground. From a previous snow, we're just sitting there. And he's staring up at the sky, guys. He's staring up at these stars. And he's like, hey, what do you know about that up there? And he's not looking at me. The whole time he's looking up there, sipping on his little coffee mug. And he said, what do you know about that? I said, what are you talking about? He said, space. What do you know about that? I said, nothing. And he started talking. And he started talking about ancient times, and he was talking about it like matter of factly, like he knew these things. And I'm like, okay, right on. I hear you. But then he took a sip and he got real specific. And he told me about a specific project that took place back in the 60s that his Air Force was part of, where they sent 12 soldiers to live on another planet. Now, this was 03. Well, actually, it was 02. I came home in 03. This was 02. Right before 03. It's December 02. This years before it was ever leaked. And I didn't know to take it serious. I thought it was, this guy might be crazy. So, long story short, we went and ate the chili. We never spoke about it again. A couple of weeks later, I graduated. I went home, and I'm outside smoking about a week later. This is the beginning of January, maybe the second week of January, 03, because I went home January 7th, and my mentor pulls in. He pulls in, and I run over. I'm like, oh, get in. So I get in. We take a ride, and we pull over at South Hamilton Elementary. It was like afternoon where the school had already left out, but everybody goes up there and chills. So we pulled in right there, and he's like, what does a mentor always ask you when you come home from a situation? What did you learn? And he said, I thought I was going to be funny. I thought I was going to be a smart ass. And I was like, well, yeah, I learned that your Air Force sent 12 soldiers to live on another planet back in the 1960s. It was called Project Crystal Night. This old man got real young, real fast, and he grabbed a hold of me by my Echo bubble coat. I'll never forget that shit. He pinned me down beside the seat and the door, the passenger side. And he said, who the fuck told you that? He had never cussed me. It threw me off. And I that's my mentor. I told him, I said, man, Mr. Paul, he told me on it, and I didn't know what to do. And everybody that knows me knows, especially back then, I was wild. So if I let somebody put their hands on me and I'm not fighting back, that means I had a lot of respect for the person. And it dawned on me, oh shit, I know something I'm not supposed to know, and I didn't think it was real, and I just found out this is real. And so he let me go. I stayed down there though. He let me go, and he did something else down there. He lit up a cigarette. It was like a clove Sister Street type thing. And he's smoking it all the way to the building, puts it out. And he said, well, go ahead and sit up. He apologized for, grabbing me. He didn't hit me, no. Like, hey, he apologized for it, told me to sit up. Let's set up. And he said, well, what did you think about what he told you? I said, man, I don't know. It seemed cool, but I understand. I can't do nothing else about it. I'm good. I'm good. Just take me home. And he put the car in reverse, and the whole time I was wondering, he's going to try to hit me with the car, should I run? I didn't know what the fuck to do. So he takes me home, and I go to get out, and he grabs me by the arm, and I'm like, here we go, this is it. And he just looks me in the eye. And he says, I'll be in touch. And I was like, okay. And I got out, and I couldn't sleep. I'm shaking as a kid. I got the adrenaline, whatever. About a week and a half later, towards the end of 03, maybe the third week of 03, getting into the fourth week, I'm on ICQ on the computer, first social media for anybody listening before we ever had Facebook and stuff. And I'm talking to somebody, and I look out, and I see a different color sedan pull in by the mailboxes in front of the house. And he beeps the horn. I look up, and there's no tinted windows. I can see who it is. It's him. So I grab my coat, grab my boots, I run down, I get in, and he said, hey, were you serious about wanting to know more? I said, yeah. I was, but I know I can't. I know you can't tell me nothing, so I'm good. He said, I'll tell you what, you give me your word as a man, you'll never repeat anything that I might show you or I might tell you, and we'll see what we can do. And I said, I'll give you my word. He said, no. I said, give me your word as a man. We have military stuff, that manly stuff. He was really into that. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, you got my word as a man. I won't tell you. I won't tell nobody. He said, okay. Sit back. Fast forward down the road, we ended up in Fayetteville, Pennsylvania, catty corner from the Flamingo. There's a little hotel right there, one-story spot. Back in the day stuff with the key, no key card, just real key. And he didn't pull up at the front. He pulled up at the door. And so we pull up at the door, and that's indicating he already has the room. So he opens the door, and I open the door, and he knocks him up to the car. And as we walk towards the door, he tells me, he said, when I open this door, you take 2 steps in, you stop. And I'm like, oh, I'm about to get whacked. Here it goes. Here's the other shoe about to drop. And instead, I took 2 steps and I stopped, and it was pitch dark. Couldn't see anything. A little bit of light that did come in. I seen some like shapes in front of me. And he shut the door behind me, locked all of everything. All the drapes were already, curtains were already pulled. Then he turns the light on. I see why he said that. Well, one of the chairs that's usually around the table was right there. The back of it was facing the TV, and the front of it, was facing the bed. And he said, okay. He pointed at the bed. There was a little Sheetz gas station for those around the PA tri-state area. There's a Sheetz gas station bag. And he said, there's some snacks if you get hungry. And he pointed at the cooler on the floor, pushed up against the bed. He said, there's some refreshments if you get thirsty. And he said, he pointed at the bathroom. He said, there's a bathroom if you need the bathroom break. Are you ready? And I said, yeah, I'm ready. He said, have a seat. So I took a seat. And he went over to the table. There was 2 cardboard boxes, the cardboard legs. He pulled one lid off. He pulled another lid off. And he started pulling out these files. File after file after file. And he started putting them on the bed in front of me. And they had the War Office stamp from the Pentagon on some of them. They had DIA reference manual. They had a top secret code word on some of them. They had magic eyes only on some of them. And he's handing me files and he's briefing me verbally while I'm looking at all these stuff, transcripts and pictures of bugs they brought back from the planet that looked like beetles without pinchers on the front, and the Kingman, Arizona craft, and handwritten notes on the side of the photo. And it was 90. It even said 90 feet. So anybody that thinks they know that craft is smaller than that, they're wrong. It was 90 feet. And it even said the misinformation that was put out and transcripts from audio journals from those that went to the planet and Ronald Reagan briefings and stuff way before that was ever leaked in little snippets. That's hundreds of pages of that. And I'm just looking at all this stuff. And that lasted about 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours. And then that turned into a double life. That turned into me not saying anything. And then I'm going, I couldn't sleep for the first couple of days. Obviously, I'm just like blown away. And then once the adrenaline wore off, then it's like, okay, well, I still have to live my life. And I did. So my life was a knucklehead kid in the street doing dumb shit. And I would get locked up. I'd get home. I'd come out after doing a few months or whatever. And he'd be like, he'd find me through the parole department. And he'd pull up at my house, my dad's house or wherever I was at the time. Throughout the years, man, he'd pull up. And he'd say, man, what are you doing? And, get your life together. I thought you better than that. And then that would segue into either I got something to show you or, hey, I'll be by tomorrow morning. You free? And we both knew what that meant. That was a briefing. This turned into eight briefings over a 9.5-year time frame between the end of January 2003 and the beginning of September 2012. Fast forward to recently, within the last year, I came forward on X. I authored a whistleblower document about 3.5 years ago. It was being censored. Nobody was really listening to it. So I came forward on X because I finally had, a way to do so. So I did so. And I didn't really have any followers, about 34 followers, July of last year, July 16th. That's actually the day that they left for the planet on an alien craft from the Nellis Range or, Nevada test site or national security site, as it's actually called now. And so I posted a post that happy departure day and put all the details, some of the details. And somebody sent that to Richard Doty, retired Air Force intelligence officer that famously came forward and told everybody, hey, they had me running some deception operations back in the day and I'm going with one. Now, people use that to try to say he's not credible, use him as a scapegoat, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't know about it unless he told you about it. So you can't listen to that, but not listen to what else he said. Anyway, good guy. So they sent it to him. And they said, hey, this guy's saying he got briefed by AFOSI. Is this legit? And he looked into it. And he came back with the answer. And he came forward publicly and said, yeah, I can confirm his name in U.S. intelligence. So that threw me off. And I said, wait a minute, what? That was supposed to be illegal off the books briefing. How'd that take place? And then we were doing a space with Maze Love, and he got an email sent out by a retired OSI agent involved in Operation Society Hike, which explained it. And he read the email live. And it basically said that I was recruited for Operation Society Hike, that people from different types of societies, were selected to be briefed on governmental operations, to prepare you and groom you for secretive covert missions in whatever subject you were being briefed on. Now, my subject was very rare. There's only a couple of us, as far as I've been able to learn since coming forward. Most of it was, anti-terrorism, counter-espionage, stuff like that. This was very rare. Then you take my situation. He always used to tell me, about trying to stand up against the Magi Committee, which is ran by MJ-12, which is not a psyop. They're not disbanded. It's still there. And Magic Eyes Only, MAJIC actually stands for Military and Joint Intelligence Committee. Magic Eyes Only is a classified committee that Congress doesn't even know about. And this committee runs the world through MJ-12, through the United Nations Security Council. So I learned all this. So the point is, he basically was telling me about all these things. And when I look back in retrospect with, hindsight 2020, he was trying to prepare me to infiltrate this secret space program and take it down. And now I realize why he included all of the stuff he was not cleared to include. And he broke the law. And that's why I don't want to give out the biological name until they give me assurances that his family won't lose his pension. So that's how I know what I know.
Okay, well, that is an incredible story. So let's get into, let's just cut to the chase and get into the information. What were you briefed on? We know the Serpo mission. I know that you want to get into some of the technology, and I even heard you talk about on another interview the Galactic Federation and this 2027 agenda. So any direction you'd like to go with this, you just take the wheel, and we'll just sit back and let us know what you were told.
Okay. I do want to encourage you to ask any question, interrupt at any time, because you never know, that might take us in a way that where your listeners will get an answer that they were looking for that maybe I wasn't thinking of. So interrupt at any time and ask any question you have. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I think it's important to go straight to the most impactful, practical thing that we could be doing that we're not, and that's the technology. And when I break this down, individuals within these fields, that if they're not already compromised, they're going to tell you, not only is this possible, it's the only way it would work. Okay, look, let's start off with how UFOs work. This has never been described in the manner I'm about to describe it, except in a release that I put on there, but that's a limited audience. So let's put it out there for yours. How UFOs work and how they're able to maneuver the way they do without killing or even injuring the occupants inside has always been something that's never been understood and speculated. Oh, maybe they're drones, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's aliens because humans could never withstand them type of G-forces. Wrong. Not the case. It's not propulsion. That's where everybody gets it wrong. There is no propulsion. It is repulsion. It is actually listed as, in this classified files, as anti-gravity repulsion technology. Okay? AGRT. Anti-gravity repulsion technology. How it works is this. Bob Lazar was not lying. There is two different technologies, one more advanced than the other, and I'll get into the other one for deep space propulsion. It's mixed with this here in a minute. It's three different technologies, and that's what he was talking about. But what he referred to when it comes to this, when he talked about element 115, element 115 is not, I repeat, is not the element 115 currently on the periodic table. The reason why the Nellis range in Los Alamos, specifically K section, if I'm not mistaken, called it element 115 is because at that time, they only had 114 elements on the periodic table. So by calling it element 115, you're calling it, this is an unknown element. Okay, so up at that time, and as the time that the documents that were put together throughout the decades that I got to get briefed on, we did not have access to mine it here on Earth. Now, I will tell you in a little bit what I learned since then during my my seventh briefing, the second to last briefing, about some very deep drilling to the outer core of the metallic core, and then my opinion on whether or not 115 is down there. But the point is, when we first started doing all this after Roswell, we didn't have that. So once we started building these crafts, we had to get it on loan. We had to ask because it's not native to here. Just like gold is not native to there. Gold is very rare too. So this element 115 is nuclear in nature, but heavier than plutonium when enriched. So what it does is it powers an engine. And this engine, the purpose of it, the sole purpose of it, is to create an artificial electromagnetic field surrounding the craft. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's another power source that helps power the engine, and I'll get into that in a minute. That's called particle vacuum enhanced energy devices. But this particularly is just to make the craft work. So, if up close, it can kind of look like a heart shape to the naked eye, but really it's a bubble. From afar, and the core floating in the sky. It's really the electromagnetic field. It's the charge that you're seeing. If you get up close, you see a craft. And sometimes on infrared, you see a heart-shaped bubble. So what it is this. Take two magnets in your hand. Put them close, they stick. Boom. Take one, flip it, keep the other one right side up, push them both together. What do? They repel. Now imagine if one of those magnets is the Earth's electromagnetic field, natural electromagnetic field, and the other is this artificial electromagnetic field. And you set them at opposing polarity, like positive and positive, or negative and negative. We'll just say positive and positive. And then the one that's artificial, you're able to change the volume, the pitch, the output. And then you use that. And it literally repels off of gravity itself. And that can give you anything from a stationary hover to taking off, up, down, side, and each gravitational pull that it's repelling off of changes the speed it can obtain while only using that technology. So I'll tell you, the Earth's gravitational pull that we have, the top speed of that repulsion on this planet is 216,000 miles an hour. That's how fast these repulsion crafts can move with only using that technology. Okay. Now, as a byproduct of creating your artificial electromagnetic field, you've now created your own artificial gravitational pull inside this bubble, which the craft is the only thing inside the bubble. So now you have created your own artificial electromagnetic field that is now giving you your own artificial gravity inside your craft that is completely independent to all the gravity outside that bubble. So you no longer are affected by the gravity that is outside of this bubble that literally slices through everything else like oil through water or like water through oil. And that's why there is no friction coming in and out of the atmosphere. You don't see a fire trail behind UFOs. It's because they're sliding right through. They're displacing at the front, replacing it at the back because it's just a bubble. And now because of that, you have now eliminated G-force. You don't even feel it. You wouldn't even know you're upside down unless you either pulled the maneuver yourself or looked outside because you're still being pulled to that seat because you have your own gravity. And that's how you're able to maneuver 200,000 miles an hour or 5,000 miles an hour at a 90-degree angle without turning the mush. You don't even feel it. You don't even feel it. That's how they're able to maneuver. Right. And that's how they're powered. And that's how they work.
Yeah, that's a brilliant explanation. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And okay, so I want to kind of just jump into what were you told about, or were you told anything about off-world colonies, breakaway civilizations outside outside of the moon and Mars, were you made aware of colonies that extended into our galaxy?
Absolutely. So the only one I actually remember the name of one of them, but that's because it was part of the Serpo name or Serpo mission. So the 12 soldiers that actually did go to Serpo, okay, after the first 2 years, the equator area became a little too arid for them. It wasn't really sustainable. So they were relocated to another quadrant. The quadrant 1 that they mapped at the northern hemisphere was more temperate, temperate of a climate. And it resembled, they got mountains and they got evergreen looking trees, but instead of sap, it was like a milky white liquid that the Ebens or Ebens, or whatever you want to call them, the Triponians is their real name, ETE2 in the files, actually used as nourishment. So it looked like Montana. And James McKeever, who was actually the team leader, identified by code 102 in the files, is from Colorado. And the other team members and him have been to Montana. So they looked at it. They said, this really resembles Montana. So they named it Little Montana. Fast forward, that was 1967 is their second, 68, because it took them a while. It took them 9.5 months to get there. So 68 is when they established this base camp. Fast forward. They left in 1978. We now have a flourishing city or colony named Little Montana on Serpo with millions of humans. Millions. There are people that are born there, never been there. And then we have these, they're called FOBs, forward operating bases. We have these FOBs all over. We have them in the Altair star system. We have them where? We have them in the Rigel star system, but that's only on the moon. I can't remember which. We have them right here in this solar system, all over. Data Reticuli 2 is where Serpo is at, but Data Reticuli 1. We have on one of the moons of Silus, Silus, is actually one of the names of the planets there that was, a seeded civilization that ECEC created, one of the CBE lists, cloned biological entity list. There's 4 CBE 1 through 4. There's so many different star systems. Alpha Mensae star system. We have a presence there. We have a presence at the TRAPPIST 1 star system, which, that leads to the 2027 stuff, which will be concluded by 2027, not starting. With the last one to say that, so people get involved, but.
Okay, so this is that's amazing. Yeah, we understand the secret space program, but you were briefed on specific locations of what do you call FOBs, forward operating bases, breakaway colonies, and they're all over the place. Hundreds of them, you would say?
I would not say hundreds. I would say dozens.
Dozens?
I would say at least 50. Yes, because we have at least, last time that I received my briefing, as of September 2012, we had at least 24, so 24 USS, which means United States starships, in operation. And some of these starships could man 400 people, and some of them could man thousands. And they are literally what you see on Star Trek, not the shape, I'm talking about just the mission. It's literally what you see. And they are just out there. And they are completely separate as a satellite government to the United States government. And they are just out there. Boom. And they fly that insignia of the Galactic Federation of Light ever since 1971 when Viator actually came back. And there was an agreement put into place. And that's actually when the Space Force was actually created. That's what they're doing. That's the real Space Force is out there. Trump just released it. I don't know if he thought he was groomed to believe he created it, but I'm telling you, it was created in 1971 under Nixon. I've seen it myself.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. So you're okay. Let's talk about the fleet, the satellite government, what you call them, and carrying the Galactic Federation logo insignia. So that would indicate that we are part of the Galactic Federations of worlds, but you said of light. So is there a difference?
There is a difference, and that's the PSYOP. They've convinced people that the Galactic Federation of Light is actually the PSYOP and worlds is the real, and that's a lie. I've seen the insignia, and I have yet to see anybody show it. Anybody. It almost looks like JSOC. It's okay. Picture a globe. Picture swords going around it a little bit. Picture stars in the background. Picture in English when it's on our ship, Galactic Federation of Light as it goes around in small letters. And that's very similar to it. If you put like something very similar to the Star Trek symbol in the middle, which is also similar to the Space Force symbol in the middle, because they're both modeled after the GFL symbol, oddly enough. So that's basically the insignia. And when I hear people talk about the Galactic Federation of Worlds, as soon as I hear them call it that, and they say that they're in touch with them, I know they're full of shit. I know they're full of shit. Now, they might be in touch with someone, but I can tell you 100% they are not in touch with the Galactic Federation like they think they are, because the Galactic Federation is the GFL, the Galactic Federation of Light, and the GFW, as it's been called, has convinced people. The CIA Group 6 initiative, the MJ-12 staff documents and special operations manuals. I read the whole little psyop. I read it was part of continuation on, I forget the name of it, but it was continuation on from Project Mockingbird, the whole disinformation campaign through the media and books and shows. It was just a bunch of dumb shit. And it was put together to get you to not understand that the GFL is the real thing, because they're not allowed to admit that yet. So they put out purposeful misinformation saying, oh, the GFL is a Gray's style. And it has to do with black ooze, and it's like they're trying to take your energy away and all that. And people believe it because they put documentaries out, they put all this stuff. And I just look at that and shake my head. And I'm like, here they go. Here they go. Because it's all bullshit. The GFL is the real name.
So, and everything's inverted, so that would make sense to me. Aaron, did you have any questions for him before we go on?
So Valiant Thor is a part of that, you would say?
Valiant Thor is a humanoid representative for the GFL. He was chosen in 1957 to be the representative for us because he was literally, relatively anyway, the same species as us in the blended. Human is actually one of the most common extraterrestrials out there. People think we're special. We're not. We were modeled after an extraterrestrial. It's a little bit taller than us. People call them the Anunnaki. They're actually called the Nibiruans. And in the paperwork, the documentation, the files, the classified files, they're known as either the old ones, and they're also listed as the ancient builder race. That's one of the things, what's his name, Good or whatever his name is, actually got right. A lot of the shit he said was bullshit, but that right there, he got it right. So I guess what I'm saying is, humans are so vast out there. That's just one of them, and that's what Valiant Thor was part of. I don't recall what Star's system he was from, but I do know that it was somewhere either in the Altair star system or within the Pleiadian star cluster. People don't understand that's actually a cluster of stars with hundreds of planets and many civilizations.
Right. So explain to me this 2027 agenda, what their goal is with it, what you were told about it.
Yeah, so I recently heard Jeremy Corbell say something, and it piqued my interest because I don't co-sign a lot of shit he said. And I've even asked myself if he's part of the problem or not. But I saw a video where I actually put a post up about it. That's how much it grabbed me, because he put up a video and he talked about they're going to tell you the truth, so you will accept the lie. And when he said that, I know what that means. So I said, hold on, I got to listen to this, see if he knows what the fuck he's talking about. So I listened. And it seemed like he did. So he mentioned a document from the 1970s that outlaid this plan that he would not go into, that had to do with this, tell you the truth, so you accept the lie. And one of the lies that he mentioned, the lie he mentioned, was that aliens were on their way. So when he said that, I knew the file he was talking about. And that's not the last edition, but that's to know. For him to, this is why I reposted it, for him to know that that file existed in the late 1970s, that told me he saw it. He's not lying. because they've had many different versions of what I'm about to reveal to you. And it started in the 1960s, right after 1960 when Valiant Tour left. So here's what happened. 57 Valiant Tour landed. Landed in Virginia. That's a real story. There have been many different accounts that were purposely put out to confuse everyone. Things that you think are legitimate have been confused on purpose. Authors that people have been believed to be, authentic and pro UFO community, they have been lying to you, and they've died since then and became like martyrs of the UFO community. Here's the truth. He landed in 57. He did, in fact, get taken to the Pentagon by a sheriff's department. Very reckless. Very reckless. If it would have happened today, everybody would know. Everybody would have saw it. But they knew that back then they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have all that. They didn't have a bunch of surveillance cameras. They could do what he did. So he did. And they took him to the Pentagon. And I also know that there was a psyche eval done. And that's what a lot of people, I don't think anybody's ever known that. There was a psyche eval done. And they wanted to know, was this fucking guy crazy? Because he said he was an alien. Take me to the Pentagon. So they took him. But they said they took him under guard with a psych evaluation. And the psych evaluation came back inconclusive. They couldn't get the instrument to work. Whatever they were using, I don't know what it was, whatever they used back then. But they said it was inconclusive. They couldn't get the instrument to work. I remember that. So they decided to hear him out. And then after 36 hours, people think they just went straight to the White House. They did. It was between 35 and 40, but I'm just say 36 hours of interrogation, straight interrogation. They were convinced. And they said, we need to take this guy to Eisenhower. But really what they were doing was taking that guy to MJ-12. And Nixon was there. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Nixon's been there since Roswell. He's been involved in all of this. A lot of people don't know that. So they took him to the White House in 57, and he offered a deal. He said, listen, you can bring your entire civilization into the Galactic Federation of Light, and we will bring you in, and we will travel the galaxy with you. We will give you all this technology. We'll improve the technology you're currently working on with other species and civilizations. We know about it. But you have to do two things. One, you have to give up your nuclear weapons. Two, you have to be one government. Because one of the requirements for the thousands of civilizations that's already in the GFL is you have to reach a maturity level as a society socially. And what that is you have to put borders and petty differences to these guys. Otherwise, you're not mature enough to be part of it. So they said, or he said, you have to put down those borders. You have to become a one world government. And that is where all. So we told him, listen, we already have a contract with a civilization, and it's a 70-year contract. And if we break that, there's going to be problems. And we know there's going to be problems. We can't break it. We just can't. But what about when it runs out? And they spent 3 years negotiating. 3 years. So 1960 when he left. And that 70-year contract was struck in 1954 with ETE-1 from the Rigel star system, type A, B, C, and D. There's 4 different types of grades from the Rigel star system. And that was 2,200 American citizens per year in exchange for technology. And the fucked up thing is, we ended up getting very close with ETE-2 without an abduction contract, and they're even more advanced. And they gave us all the gifts and technology, Bluetooth, flat screen, touch screen, all that came from that. Even text messaging came from reverse engineering their interstellar communications device, where you got to hit the same key over and over to circulate through the letters. That's where we had text messaging back in the late 90s on the little flip phones. That's where it came from. And all that we never had to do. But by then, we as an MJ-12 decided, and through the Magi Committee decided, it would be a good idea to bring other species in and continue to cherry pick the best technologies from all these civilizations, all these star sets, in exchange for United States citizens, and then through the UN, citizens around the globe. It came over 22,500 citizens out of the United States every single year as of 2012. And that had been that already for a while. And worldwide, we're talking millions. A lot of people that go missing is part of that. And did you have a question?
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. And so 22.5 and then millions around the world. And a lot from Africa. A lot from Africa. Because it's cradle of civilization. That's not a myth. That's a real thing. And we can get into that a little bit later when we talk about the Nibiruans. And our creation. That actually was in Africa. That's a fact. It was actually Eastern Africa, to be exact. So the point is, this contract is 70 years long. So fast forward, 1971, there was an incursion. And there was a trantiloid, which is known as a CBE4, but the original trantiloid that was cloned from have been around for millions of years and are not CBEs. They are insectoids. They are malevolent. They are, especially the CBEs, are even worse. And they are the biggest threat in the known galaxy. And that is actually why the Galactic Federation was formed, to prevent and protect worlds that could not protect themselves, and join an alliance to stop them from doing everything they do. They conquer, kill, and enslave, and just consume. That's what they do. They don't care. And when in 1971, we actually captured in Canada. And after what happened, there was a submarine involved. That's actually a real story. Is this a fake photos put out about it to back up a real story? It's weird how they do shit. Like, that's just weird. But the USS Trepang, that was a real thing. And when you put that and you pair that at the exact same time, capturing a trantiloid in Canada, same exact week, we knew there was an incursion. And we immediately were contacted by Valiant Thor. He came back. He has a base on Venus. It's heat protected. There's a whole thing going on over there for the GFL and the W56 program as they work with the GFL, but they're not GFL from the Altair star system. Anyways, all bases on Venus. The point is, he came from there and he came back and he was aware of it because they monitor all trantiloid activity. And they said, look, here's what we'll do. We cannot bring your entire civilization in. We can't until you're done with that contract and you have a one world government and you get rid of those nuclear weapons. We can't do it. However, what we can do is form something with a secret space program in secret to protect your world, but you have to bring something to the table. And that's, by then we had technology. We had, okay, well, we can bring this. We can do this. They said, okay, we can bring alliances. Yeah, we can bring alliances. So we'll have a secret one world government. Everybody work together. And we'll bring that to the table, but until we can do it publicly, we can't publicly all bring all of our citizens into it. He said, okay, that's the bet. But you have to put something together we can put an insignia on. And they did. They formed the Space Force under Nixon. So fast forward, MJ-12 is sitting there thinking, by the time this 70 years is up, how in the world are we going to convince everybody to have a one world government? How are we going to do it? And they came up with a plan in the 1960s, and then they kept going through the 70s. And in the late 70s, they came up with the idea, and they put it on paper. And that's the file that Jimmy Corbell has seen. I would bet my life on it, because it matches exactly what the final script was. And I say script very literally. During the first Reagan administration. That's what I saw, along with him, but along with what he saw. But I saw the final copy, the final cut. And I was put together during the first Reagan administration. Is what they call a staff document, MJ-12 internal staff document, but really it was Special Operations Manual 008 and then dash, and there was another 2 or 3 numbers I can't remember, but it was a real Special Operations Manual. It broke it all the way down step by step, and there was a script. And they specifically said, instead of trying to contact everybody around the world, every time it's ready to go to the next phase, we're going to have what they call, quote, precursors. Okay? And these precursors were things that they say I predicted them. I didn't predict them. I'm just releasing what these precursors are. And that was back in, from 81 to 85 or so, early 80s. So some of these things have been sped up. Some of them have been slowed down. So one of the precursors was a labeled terrorist organization in possession of a nation being confirmed as an ally of the United States and confirmed by the United Nations. So when I got briefed in 2012, it was supposed to be ISIS. Something happened to where when I looked up, the only labeled terrorist organization in possession of a nation was the Taliban. So I even said, it's got to be the Taliban. So when I did my release about it, I said, it's going to be the Taliban. And then I'm seeing, right after Trump gets elected, the Taliban releases a statement. They say, we want to be aligned with the United States. I said, here it comes. Here it comes. But then Syria happens. And not only is the leader of that from a labeled terrorist organization, but immediately the United States is already allied with it. And the United Nations already put the plan together for them to run that nation. I said, oh, shit, hold on. It was probably them. And then another precursor was there's a James Webb telescope. Or back then, it wasn't even called that. And that probably was just called high-powered telescope. I thought it was the Hubble. So I thought it was going to be the Hubble. But then when they built the James Webb, then I knew. Because they said a high-powered telescope was going to identify, quote, biological signatures / biologics, end quote, along with, quote, a technological signature, end quote. And that is a fact. That is a quote. And that was going to be in the TRAPPIST-1 star system. And Alpha Mensae star system was going to be mentioned. I found that out a little bit later. And as far as the TRAPPIST-1 star system, specifically for some, I don't know why, I wish I knew, but the date, I'm telling you, when this happens, you go back and listen to this. When the date, April 23rd of 2023 will be mentioned. I don't know what they'll use it for. Maybe they'll say that's the date they found the signatures, whatever. And what that's going to do is convince people, no, there's an alien civilization close by. Alpha Mensae and TRAPPIST-1, they're not that far away. Oh, there's an alien civilization close by. And then you have all these movies are part of the public acclamation program trying to convince you that, yeah, aliens are real. Everything from Marvel, everything. Think about it. Everything is about aliens. Everything. But all of it is, well, they're going to invade you. They're going to come. But there's some good aliens, though, that are going to help us and that we're going to prevail every single time. Or come together as a species for one world government and you'll prevail. Independence Day. All of that is public acclamation. All of it. And it's all ran by Spielberg. That's a fact. And people are going to be like, oh, look at this conspiracy theory. It's a fact. That's a fact. And so fast forward, the whole plan for the 2027 thing is this. Create all this destabilization, put everybody against each other, using race, using money, finances, using religion, using everything you can think of, destabilize this nation, that nation, and the Magi Committee. Once they infiltrate a nation and put this expert there and that expert there, so that they're really the ones running the country. If there's a dictator or something that's in the way, they get rid of them. Saddam Hussein, get rid of them. They get rid of these people because they're not playing ball. If they're playing ball, they're on ball. Because MJ-12 runs the world. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. They run the world. They let Illuminati take the blame and sit back and laugh. Oh, that shit's just a scapegoat. And they're not a secret society. They are a classified section of the government that is a satellite government that is sitting back and laughing at you. And the plan is to destabilize everybody. And by the time the 70-year contract runs out, we are right there on the cusp of World War III. And the contract ran out September 24th of just last year, 2024. And where are we at? Right there. And simultaneous to that, one of the other precursors I was warned about in 2012 was there's going to be whistleblowers come forward, so-called whistleblowers and insiders coming forward that are going to use the same phrase over and over and over to describe extraterrestrial technologies. And that's going to be this, quote, threat to national security, end quote. And they will drive that home. They will drill that through your mind. And he kept telling me that, my handling agent, my mentor, kept telling me that over and over and over. Over and over and over. Watch for that, watch for that, watch for that. And here, right before the contract runs out, I watched Elizondo come forward telling people that the Roswell species is a threat to national security. Exact word. David Grush, that's the national security. I'm watching another back. Ryan Grush, that's the national security. Many of these, he told me, would not know they are part of this narrative. Many of them. But he said some of them will know. I believe it's my personal opinion, Charles McNeal's personal opinion, that Elizondo knows and that he's part of it. I don't think David Grush does. I don't think Aaron Graves knows. I don't. That's my opinion. But Elizondo, I'm going to tell you why, and then I'm going to get right back into that 2027 thing. I'm going to tell you why I take that stance. Because me and him have seen the same file. Go back and look at my whistleblower document at acclimatenow.com that I authored 3.5 years ago. And look where I say that Roswell was a crash that involved 2 craft, not 3, not 1. And I even gave all the details to where they went down, everything. And all of a sudden, he writes a book and says, "Oh, there was 2 craft, wasn't 1." And everybody's like, "Oh my God, the whole time there was 2 craft." I've been said that. So that tells me he's seen the file that I've seen. That means you know that the Roswell species from Serpo is the most benevolent species in the galaxy. But yet you're still coming forward saying they are a, quote, threat to national security when I was told to watch out for people just like you. I know he's part of it. I know for a fact he's part of it. So you fast forward, World War III is put together on purpose. Why would they do that? Charles, why would they do that? For what? What's the purpose? Because they have to get you at your lowest point. They have to break you down so they can build you up there the way they want you to be, brick by brick, the military type of mindset. And I get it. That's what they're putting together. And then just when you think it can't get any worse, they'll kick off World War III, and one of the precursors that'll happen right before to signify that it's the last stage is Israel's Dome of the Rock will be destroyed. I don't know if it'll be from Iraq or Iran. I don't know if it'll be from within and blamed on somebody else for a false indication and warning operation or a false INW or false flag, as people call it. I don't know. I just know it'll be destroyed. And the reason for that is so 3 different religions. And that's the key. That's the key of turning everybody against each other's religion. So 3 different religions will all vie over who can rebuild it first. So each one will have the one true religion under the one true God after they rebuild, quote, Solomon's temple. Because that's the Dome of the Rock. And they'll do that on purpose to usher in that biblical prophecy so they can usher in the final stage of World War III. Once World War III kicks off, right after that, it'll kick off. And then about a couple months in, maybe 6 months in or so, and sometimes sooner, it might even be sooner, because I actually was told all this has been expedited. Let's get that out of the way. But I don't know that. I've been told that by an insider who I've vetted information-wise and know they know what they're talking about, but I don't know that. My information is mid-2026. What I was briefed on as of 2012, mid-2026 is when World War III will be interrupted by a fake alien invasion. That's a real thing. Not Project Bluebeam. There's no such thing. I'm sorry, not Operation Bluebeam. There's no such thing. Project Bluebeam is just one piece. This is how these conspiracy theories go out of control. Project Bluebeam is just one piece of the operation. All it is making all these UFOs look like make 1,000 craft look like 10,000 craft. It's a holographic technology that's made by NASA. It's a NASA thing. That's a NASA program project. Project Bluebeam is a NASA holographic technology to make 1,000 craft look like 10,000, dating the word. And actually, one of the transcripts I read, MJ12 actually floated, one of them anyway, floated the idea of projecting Jesus Christ in the sky to tell everyone of the second coming, and they convinced everybody, oh, you have to put your borders to the ground. And they turned it down. They wasn't accepted as far as I know, but that just gives you the mindset of these sick fucks, of what the manipulation tactics they'll use. So anyways, ARVs is alien reproduction vehicles. We've been building flying disc simulators since the 1950s. We've been building full-fledged ARVs since the 1970s. And we've been building full-fledged fleet since the 1980s, specifically the late 1980s, and starships from the early 1990s, late 1980s. alien reproduction vehicle. There's 4 different designs, but we have came up with a few more since then. That we have the acorn type of design, we have the boomerang type of design, we have the regular saucer shape, and we have the cigar shape. And there are many different others, like the pyramids and stuff, but these are the main 4, okay? And these are going to be used alongside what they call PLF, Programmed Life Form. These are fake aliens that we've been building since 1978 at Dulce, which is a real thing, not a fake thing. And all these other facilities, including Pine Gap, Australia's biggest actually production line of these things, they're fake aliens, little fake grays, They're bioskeletal makeup with biological tissue made from cattle mutilation over top, and they're little gray. And we've been building these things. There's millions of them, and they're going to be released with these ARVs. They're going to be piloting these ARVs along with AI piloting these ARVs, unmanned, both together. Then Project Bluebeam will be used to utilize by NASA to make it look like tens of thousands in this whole armada and invading the United States and around the world, everywhere but Antarctica, because it's off limits to aggression by humans. And then they're going to just interrupt all that about mid-2027. The UN is going to reestablish communications, and they're going to release a statement. They're going to say, we need to come together as a species to unify, to protect ourselves from annihilation. And we need to come together as the one government, one nation under God, under the United Nations banner, and put our petty differences to the side and our borders to the ground in order to defeat this common enemy. And that right there, my friends, is your one world government. And then they'll make a show of it. The Galactic Federation of Light will be intervening even before that, alongside during that, taking so-called, survivors and saving people so that everybody understands that they are good, and they are good. They are good, but they have that prime directive thing from Star Trek is a real thing. They're not allowed to intervene. So amongst each other. So they're going to be approved to do that, and they're going to save all these people, but they're going to also, now that announcement gets made, they're going to help us so-called defeat these so-called aliens, and then they're going to be like, well, those and actually a couple of the gray species and a couple of the other humanoid species, oh, these are the good aliens. They helped us defeat the bad ones. The whole time they're just the real aliens. Whole time they're just the real ones. And we're just going to hit the off switch, and then we're going to go in and become, by the end of 2027, a full-fledged member of the Galactic Federation of Light. And let me tell you, the after plan looks amazing. But that genocidal maniac plan to get us there is completely out of order. We don't have to do that. We could do it a different way.
Wow. Yeah, wow. I mean, that's quite the breakdown. And okay, so you're saying ultimately it's going to be a good thing, that it's going to bring us into the Galactic Federation and we're going to be a Star Trek civilization, right?
Absolutely. And I'm telling you, we want to be part of the GFL. We want a one world government. That's not the problem. The problem is who's going to be running the one world government as the chair of all the permanent members of the UN Security Council and the UN itself. And that's MJ-12 by way of the United States satellite government. We have to identify, detain, and replace them. And then we have 3 years, by the way. 3 years to come up with this one world government, or the GFL abandons us. And if they abandon us, doesn't matter all these other species that are here, and there's quite a few of them, even reptilians, the Tranaloids will come. They will come. But with the GFL here, they will not. So we have 3 years to do it.
What's a Tranaloid? What does it look like?
Tranaloid is I've never seen a picture of a Tranaloid, but I have read the descriptions and seen drawings of them by people that have. So a Tranaloid is an insectoid species that kind of, from the descriptions, look like a big-ass roach, beetle, parasite-looking thing. Very ugly. They have bee-looking insectoids as workers and slaves, to where they look like a real live bee mixed with an ant almost, with no fucking antennas, and slaves. I swear to God. And these Tranaloids, they're mean. And it's not because they're just angry, it's because they're impartial. They just don't give a fuck. They don't care about anything other than themselves. And all they do is consume, kill, and take all the, that's part of the consume, but they take all the resources that for everything that they have, and and then they enslave anyone that they didn't kill. And you're done. Planet by planet by planet. They've been doing it throughout the galaxy. And that's why the Galactic Federation of Light was born, so they could counteract the dark, as these individuals have been classified. And CBE-4 was modeled after the original Tranaloid by ETE-2 to try to make a better civilization out of them, and it backfired. And they joined the original. And now there are even more of this. There's billions of them.
So help me understand the Majestic 12 a little better. I mean, we all know about it by now. It's old news as far as that it existed, and we know who the original 12 were. I've even heard that Carl Sagan was a part of that. Did you get any information on that? And also,
yeah, go ahead.
And also, like, okay, who are they now? Is there any way to know who they are now?
Okay, so Carl Sagan was absolutely. He got recruited in the late 1970s following his participation in the returnees from Serpo mission. I saw his signature. He was one of the signatories on the final report that was put together in 1980. And he replaced Dr. Menzel as the head of the disinformation campaign. And if you look back, you'll see it. It's pretty evident if you have the information. You can look back and see that he went from pro-UFO, pro-believer to all of a sudden, right after the late 1970s, putting that thing out where he said, I've seen no evidence, no compelling evidence that aliens, or he said, other world beings have ever existed here, or whatever. Well, show me the evidence. Right. That's what he's doing. That's been his role. And then he also put out Contact as part of the public acclamation program, as he was instructed to do. And then a movie was made about it. But the original MJ-12, as most of people do know, or at least subscribe to, I can confirm that first list of the 12, the Eisenhower briefing diary, that's a fact. That's real. That's not wrong. That's not debunked. That's not, they know it's crazy. People are like, well, the FBI said it was fake. Of course they did. They're instructed to. They're instructed to believe that it's fake. They're not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, it's real. So they haven't been debunked. It's a real file. It's a real document. And those 12 are the original. James Forrestal wanted to tell everyone. After 2 years of doing all that, he wanted to tell everyone. And the other 11 members decided they would rather make him look crazy, have him committed, and make it look like a suicide when they assassinated him. He was the very first one of their assassination program. Far from the last, he was the first one. And that's when Vannevar Bush took over as MJ1. After Vannevar Bush, it was Dulles, the CIA director. Dulles. I don't know if he's director or the CIA. There's two Dulles brothers.
Alan? You talking about Alan Dulles?
Yes, Alan Dulles. He was MJ1, and then after Alan Dulles was George H.W. Bush. He was MJ1 all the way up till he died, and then he left it to none other than Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney's been MJ12 since the 1880s. He's put in his work, he's put in his time, and he's now MJ1. Now, as of 2012, I was instructed and informed that the directors of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the directors of Raytheon, the director of Boeing Phantom Works, all three of them will always be permanent members of the Majestic 12 group. Full stop. You will always have somebody within military, you will always have somebody within intelligence, you will always have somebody within the scientific community. And they started incorporating linguists way back, but now linguists are more or less regulated down to the Magi Committee. So here's how it works. You have MJ1 as leader, then you have MJ2 through 12, which are 11 members. And out of those 11 members, you have different compartments, right? And then out of each compartment, each one has, 30 or 40 members underneath of them to handle those compartments for the entire planet with different countries, including the United States. And that is what the Magi Committee is. Magic Eyes only. That's the military and intelligence or joint intelligence committee. That's what that is. And each section answers to each one, and MJ1 oversees all of it and is the only one that can veto any decision made. And right now, that is Dick Cheney, who is the most powerful man on the planet. There is no alien species. I'm telling you right now, there is no alien species that is running our government. That's the psyop. There is no extraterrestrial civilization that is more advanced than us. We are equally as advanced. That is the psyop. That is the mindset that they tell you. This archaic rocket technology, all that's bullshit. It's all distractions from what we really do. And you alluded to it earlier when you talked about the moon bases and Mars bases. I know the names of the moon bases. They're actual names in the file. So you surprised me when you knew about that.
Well, what are the bases?
So you have Lunar Base 1, Lunar Base 2, and all of that is under LOC, L-O-C. It's named Lunar Operations Command. And all of that is over there as part of extraterrestrial bases side by side. You have circular buildings, half a mile wide. You have a rectangular type buildings that's like skyscrapers. I mean, like, it's insane. And then they have this holographic field over top of it that makes it look like a moon, where unless you go into it, you won't see it. So you could take a picture of the backside of the moon, won't see it. And then they have this tunnel network that was left by our creators that we have now inhabited and we utilize. And not just us, extraterrestrials have been utilizing that in ET2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. They have all, not 6, all 7 and 8. They have been utilizing these tunnel networks, including on Mars. I forget the name of the bases on Mars. Forgive me, I have forgotten more than I remember, but I remember quite a bit.
Ares Prime, does that ring a bell for Mars base?
Ares Prime, something Prime does. I'll say that. Yeah, I don't know if it's Ares Prime, but something Prime. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that rings true. And they're a subterranean. If it said it was subterranean, about 1.5 miles down, that connects to a crater of some sort. I remember that. I don't remember the exact location. It was in the same file that actually described a tomb, a tomb that is located there. You called it the face of Mars. It's actually a tomb, and there's bones in there of a humanoid species. It was buried there. A former king, a disgraced king. That's why he was buried there. Of Nibiru. Yeah.
Wow.
It was in the same file when it talked about that too.
Aaron, do you have any questions for him?
There's a million questions. I mean, I could have, but no, I'll just let you go. Just keep going, man. Fascinating.
Okay, so you were whenever you were briefed, this guy would pick you up, you would go for a ride, and he would just show you all these documents, and you were part of some project that you didn't even really understand you were a part of. And is the guy that was briefing you, your mentor, is he still around?
No, he died on April 21st of 2018.
Okay.
Unfortunately. And I didn't know that until I came forward and all this came out.
And okay, so explain to us a little bit more like what a briefing looked like, because you have an extensive, I mean, you have quite a bit of knowledge, and the fact that you retained as much as you did tells me that you weren't just listening to him, you were looking at actual files and documents. So how did a briefing look? You told us about the first one, but what did they start to look like over time?
So to be honest, it was the same setup when you go in. Instead of like breaking the whole synopsis and soliloquy down, he'd point at the bags in the cooler without saying nothing. I already know what a bathroom is, whatever. And you ready? Yep. I'd sit down. And he'd go right into it. The whole military, mindset would come out. But you're not wrong. It became more controlled. It became more pointed, right? And this is the main thing that I have a lot of skeptics, that can't get over this, that they don't pay attention to the facts I spit. They just can't get over hotel room. They're like, if this was going to happen, it would be in a skiff. And let me tell you something. 98% of any information about this subject, not terrorism, not anything. This subject spoken in a skiff is bullshit. You will never, until we get rid of the problem, you will never receive the truth of this subject in a skiff. You don't get it there. You know where you get it? You get it on bases, and you get it as part of a very controversial program known as Operation Society Hike. And when there's another thing, they're like, well, what was your clearance? I didn't have one. Operation Society Hike is very controversial and classified for a reason. They pick you up and they take you somewhere secretive or, secure. And I say secure loosely because think about it. There's nobody that knows that I'm going to if they tell. So it's not like somebody's outside with some sort of fucking device listening to it. So, oh my God, I got classified information. No one knows we're there. That's just like if you're, in the car and somebody says, don't turn around, the police are there, and you turn right around, that gets you pulled over, right? Same type of thing. Nobody knows what you're doing. You're just there. So and that's what people don't, common sense would just fix all this for people, but it's like they can't get over that hump, right? So they were all 8 at one of them was a 2-story hotel, but it was all 1-story hotels and 1 2-story hotel. I think it was, actually, I know that was the 6th briefing because that was the most impactful briefing I ever had. I cried 3 fucking days after that one. But they were all key. None of them were key cards. None of them were like new school joints, even up to 2012. He always found one close around my area, South Central Pennsylvania, anywhere from Chambersburg to Shippensburg to Fayetteville to Gettysburg, to all these areas right there. Never left that area, Franklin County type of area, even in the Cumberland County type of area, and that was it. Right? Or Adams County, too. And it would always be somewhere like he already scoped out, already picked, and obviously he knows what he's doing. He's picking these places for a reason. He's not just saying, oh, well, let's go to the Comfort Inn today. Like, no, he scoped this shit out for a reason, and he picked it.
That lines up with the Sands of Time material, Aaron, if you remember, whenever he was brought into a little motel for a meeting where he was, basically they just dropped the ball, all the information. It was
right.
They specifically even named it in the books. I don't remember, but also
that might be part of the public acclamation program. Go ahead.
Yeah, probably that material was leaked intentionally. I'm in my opinion, but it's basically contains the origins of time travel in the shadow government and how much that is prevalent, and it fills in like an entire missing gap of history in Germany and how they even developed these flying saucers. But it's absolutely brilliant material. But that some of what you're saying lines up with what is released in those books, which that author, Sean David Morton, by the way, if you don't know, has since passed away. He was wrongfully imprisoned, and they gave him throat cancer in prison, and then he lost his voice and then passed away. And before he could even get the last 2 books out, but they are going to come out because his wife is going to make sure that they get released. But what you're saying reminds me of also, Aaron, it reminds me of Larry. Whenever, so I was it's a long story, but in 2017, I had a guy approach me in a very similar fashion who was dropping all this classified information with me, on me. And he was also simultaneously trying to recruit me into a Mars program.
Yep.
And it was it's going to be a big part of my book that's coming out. And then also kind of like the Navwar thing, I feel like he was doing something similar, not like more overtly, but the way he was kind of behind the scenes working with me, it very much seems like these guys are like choose specific people to give information to get it out as like, what do you call it? The Continuing Public Acclamation Act or program?
It's a public acclamation program. It's been around since 1977 officially, but before that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like you're talking to 2 people who have been researching this for quite some time now, and everything that you're saying rings true to me. There's no skepticism here. Actually, like it all actually makes perfect sense to me, really. And
I appreciate that.
Okay, so just off the top of my head, something you said about Valiant Thor having a base on Venus but not being from Venus. I have heard this from a woman who claims to be in contact with him, and So is that the case? He's not actually from Venus. He just has a base there, a settlement there.
That's a fact. There is no civilization. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that, because there are animals that are made for that type of heat, to where if they came to a temperate climate, they would die. Kind of like if an animal from this temperate climate went to the heat, they would die. Same thing. There's no intelligent civilization, no sentient being civilization that is from Venus. Facts. There are bases, and I've actually read descriptions of these bases to where they are described as huge. I'm talking miles and miles and miles. Huge. What do you want to call them? Not cylinders, but like upside down bowls.
Okay.
Right?
Like domes.
They're like domes. Like domes. Domes. That's the word I'm looking for. God damn, I couldn't think of it. They're like domes. And they are connected to underground networks. And they have, and just like here on Earth, we take it about 1.5 miles down. They take it about 1 mile down. It's a little different. And, you know, they counteract the heat when you go down, just like here on Earth. They counteract the heat with this technology that they have. And they keep it like whatever temperature you need it to be. And they use the natural Earth energies to light these areas and to climate control these areas. It's super technical, and it's very, very, very interesting. But the ambient light usually comes out like a green or a purple or whatever, and that's on Earth. I don't know what they would be on Venus. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. But they have these subterranean bases, and they have these domes that are huge, but they look like metal, but they're not the type, like they're not steel. They're not like, something like, like a freaking like popcorn machine that would be like super hot inside. No, they're made the way they're made to reflect all of that heat and actually turn all that sunlight and heat into energy through this dome. It's like it works like 4 different ways. I remember reading, and they have this huge community inside. They have kids, and they walk around naked. That's what tripped me out. They all the humanoids anyway, they walk around butter ass naked. But it's not sexual. It's not sexual. They walk around butt ass naked, and all of them are beautiful. That's how they were described. All of them beautiful. And it just blew my mind. And they have this transparent, they have the nerve to make them transparent when they're naked too. They have this transparent device. And this is where I said, this is going to blow your mind. This is where witches come from. So, witches or brooms come from, I should say. So they have this device. It's called, the nickname of it that the W56 program told us was overalls, right? And we'll translate the overalls in English. Overalls. Okay, I forget what it was in Italian, whatever. But what it is a translucent device that makes it look like you're walking an inch above or so above the ground. And if you get into a sitting position, it propels you through the air with the anti-gravity repulsion technology, and the suit protects you, right? And you have a certain amount of oxygen inside. Swear to God. So if you get in a sitting position, you'll shoot across the sky real quick. And that's where and a lot of these, suits get used in Mexico and around Mexico City, and they think they're witches, bro. And they're not witches. They're these beings that are part of either the TFL or the W56 debunk program or from out there. They're usually humanoid. And as soon as they get in a sitting position, they shoot to the next cliff, and then they start walking again. That's what that is. That's what it is, bro. And it just blew my mind when I read that file. Like, I was like, oh, shit, the whole time.
Wow. So that's a very peculiar detail to have in a document. But, that kind of lends credibility to it, in my opinion. Just silly things like that we don't think about. Because if you were just to describe the human race to